Hey everyone, and welcome back to Rank and File Sports. And today we're going to be hopping right back into our series where we are predicting every single Power 4 team's record by the start of the college football season. And today it's going to be the Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado has been getting a lot of hype in year two with Deion Sanders. They had a lot last year, and it didn't pan out, and they didn't end up having a very good year. They bring back Shedeur Sanders at quarterback, Travis Hunter, the two-way player at wide receiver and corner. Will they be able to get it done this season, or will it be more of the same from last year where they end up just being overhyped and overrated? Colorado does have one of the more difficult Big 12 schedules, playing, in our opinion, the best five teams in the conference. They have Kansas State, Arizona, Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State all on the schedule, which is a pretty tough schedule. The start isn't as awful with the non-conference. They have North Dakota State, an FCS school. They used to be the best FCS school, but that title has kind of fallen onto South Dakota State now. The matchup on the road at Nebraska will also be pretty tricky, with the Huskers bringing in the highly touted freshman Dylan Raiola. They flipped him from Georgia, and he's supposed to be a really good player. They're hyping him up quite a bit. It's expected that he's going to be the starting quarterback this year. Nebraska always sells out every home game. This one should be no different. It's early in the season, so this is definitely one Colorado is not are going to want to watch out for because it's not a guaranteed win by any means. Colorado State is one of their rivalry matchups. This one's pretty early on in the season, like last year, and last year it ended up being a very, very close game. This is another one to watch out for as a game they could potentially lose going into Big 12 play. The kickoff to Big 12 play isn't as awful, though. Baylor's not super amazing. This should be a win for Colorado, especially at home. The road trip to UCF could be a little bit difficult. It's pretty far to travel early in the season. UCF will probably be slight underdogs here, but don't count them out, especially at home. And coming out of the bye week, it gets a little bit tougher. Kansas State and Arizona are very difficult matchups back to back. Arizona is a very talented team. They should be able to defend their home field. Kansas State going on the road to Colorado will be maybe a potential upset win for Colorado. But again, Kansas State's a very good team, so I wouldn't count them out on the road either. Cincinnati at home should be a pretty easy win for the Buffaloes. The Bearcats are not going to be very good this season. Following the bye week, a road trip to Texas Tech before a pretty difficult three-game stretch to end the season is also a spot where Colorado could be upset, especially if they get caught looking ahead to Utah coming out of the bye week. They'll have no doubt started preparing for that game early, given they have 2 weeks just to prepare for Texas Tech. They can't overlook the Red Raiders. They're a very balanced team overall. This is one that Colorado does not want to overlook and potentially lose because they could be fighting to make a bowl game by this point. The last three games are very difficult, with Utah at home most likely going to be the best team in the Big 12 Conference this season. A road trip to Kansas with Jalen Daniels at quarterback. They have a very talented offense. The dual threat ability of Jalen Daniels is very hard to contain. And finally, Oklahoma State at home. Just again, a very balanced Cowboys team. They're going to have a good offense and a pretty good defense once again. They'll be one of the better teams in the Big 12 this year. It's going to be hard to win this game, even though Colorado is at home. Overall, they have 6 home games and 6 away games, with 4 of their opponents ranked in the rank and file top 25, giving them an overall schedule difficulty of 7 out of 10. Only one guaranteed win on the schedule for the Buffaloes, and that's going to be North Dakota State. Kind of like I mentioned, they are an FCS school, and they're not quite the FCS powerhouse that they were a few years ago. So we don't really expect them to be able to compete with a team like Colorado, especially when the Buffs have home field advantage. The two likely wins are going to be Colorado State and Cincinnati. Now, this Colorado State game is definitely one to watch out for. Colorado is the more talented team. However, they're going on the road to play one of their rivals early in the season. It's definitely something that has upset potential. We still expect Colorado to get the win, but it's something that you should watch out for as a potential upset. And then the game against Cincinnati is on October 26th. This one is at home for Colorado, and Cincinnati is probably going to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12. So we do expect the Buffaloes to get a home victory here. 5 total toss-ups on the schedule for Colorado, and the first one is at Nebraska. Now, this one, kind of like I mentioned, is going to be a very tough environment early on in the season. Nebraska should be improved this year, and as of right now, the Cornhuskers are touchdown favorites. I do expect Colorado to compete in this game. I think it's going to be very, very close. I don't know if Nebraska wins by a touchdown, but I do think they end up winning this game. The next one is the opener to the Big 12 season, and that is a home game against Baylor. The Bears are not a super great team. This one was a borderline between a toss-up and a likely win. We are going to give it to Colorado, but this game might be kind of close round the third quarter before Colorado pulls away late. UCF on the road, however, is definitely going to fall into this toss-up category. The Knights are a team that people might be underrating a little bit. They have a few decent games that might make their records seem a bit worse. They have to go on the road to play Florida. They also play Utah and Arizona in the Big 12. But other than that, almost every game on their schedule is winnable for the Knights, so they could end up being a pretty good team this year. Definitely watch out for Colorado going on the road there pretty early in the season, so that's one the Buffaloes definitely could lose. Kansas is another road matchup. This one's on November 23rd, pretty late in the season, and it's right before another matchup with Oklahoma State and after a game against Utah. This one's going to be sandwiched in the middle of those two tough games. Really difficult to see Colorado pulling out a win. They definitely have the talent to, but the fact that Kansas is the home team and they're going to be looking ahead to Oklahoma State right after probably losing to a really tough Utah team, I don't know if they're going to be able to get the win here. And finally, a road trip to Texas Tech on November 9th. The Red Raiders, kind of like I mentioned earlier, are a very balanced team. They're going to be pretty good this season. The schedule might mean they finish with a similar record to Colorado. And unlike Colorado, they don't really have any stars, but they're also not really weak at many different positions. Colorado definitely has a weak offensive line once again this year. That could be the difference in this game. Texas Tech is going to have a really good shot to win this game at home. Now, there's 4 likely losses for Colorado, the first of which is the October 12th matchup at home against Kansas State. And the Wildcats are almost certainly going to be favored in this game. They are one of the better teams in the Big 12. But we do expect them to drop one game, maybe two, to a team that maybe they shouldn't lose to. One of those could be Colorado. I wouldn't count Colorado out of this game. They're going to be underdogs, but the fact that they're at home means they're definitely going to have a good shot to win it. Now, the week after is going to be a lot tougher, going on the road to Arizona. This is a very talented Arizona team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. This one's going to have a lot of fireworks, but in the end, it will most likely be Arizona pulling out a late home victory. The last two, Utah and Oklahoma State, can kind of be grouped together. Both of these are pretty good teams on defense. The Utes are probably a little bit better. They both have experienced quarterbacks in Cam Rising and Alan Bowman. Both of these games are at home for Colorado, but you just look at them and you can kind of tell, Utah and Oklahoma State are the better team in both of these scenarios. It's possible that Colorado is able to upset one of the two, but I just really don't see a way that they're able to win both of these games. So, looking at the schedule recap, the Buffaloes start off the season with a win against North Dakota State. However, we have them dropping the game at Nebraska. We have Colorado as slight favorites here. However, Nebraska pulls out a home victory in the end. They bounce back with 3 straight wins heading into the bye week to be 4-1. And then the home game against Kansas State, we actually have Colorado pulling off the upset over the Wildcats. I said they were probably going to lose one game to a team they shouldn't. We do think that's going to be Colorado, which moves them to 5-1. However, the road trip to Arizona is a very difficult game, and I just don't really see a way that they win that, especially if they beat Kansas State the week before. Those are probably 2 games you can group together and say that they will win one of those 2. We have it as Kansas State. It makes a little bit more sense for it to be the home game, so they do lose to Arizona. However, we have the Buffaloes picking up their 6th win and becoming bowl eligible against Cincinnati. Cincinnati, as I already mentioned before, is one of the worst teams in the Big 12. So we expect Colorado to get a pretty comfortable home win here heading into their second bye week. Out of that is a pretty tough road matchup at Texas Tech. We have the Buffs as slight favorites even though they're on the road. It's a very balanced Texas Tech team. This is going to be a very close game. However, we do have Colorado moving to 7-2. Following that game, though, it gets a lot tougher. It's a pretty difficult 3-game stretch with Utah, a road trip to Kansas, and Oklahoma State. All 3 of these games we do have as losses for the Buffs, which puts their record at 7-5. The projected record sits at 6.1 and 5.85, so still favored to make a bowl game, but it's kind of favoring them to lose one more game. Most likely Kansas State. Could also see them dropping the game at Texas Tech, or maybe even an upset at Colorado State. There are a few more losable games on this schedule, but there are definitely some winnable ones too. It's also possible they could beat Nebraska and Kansas, and probably the ceiling for Colorado would be around 9-3 this season. They have a 5.8% chance to make the playoffs with an FPI projected record of 6.3 and 5.7 and a 0.1% chance to make the playoff or to win the national championship. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next video.